In this video, I'm going to give you my full card predictions for UFC 300. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. At the top of the card, we have a massive fight at 205 pounds for the belt in our main event. Pereira looking to make his first successful UFC title defense. Pereira has been one of the hottest fighters in the game over the last couple of years. He signed with the UFC after a legendary kickboxing career, ends up fighting for the belt in just his fourth fight in the promotion and wins. He's shown up against great competition. He fought Sean Strickland, former champion, Israel Adesanya twice, former champion, Jan Blachowicz, former champion, Yuri Procházka, former champion. He's been able to beat these champions because his calf kick is second to none, and of course that lead left hook that he throws might be the single best weapon in the sport today. Very few men are standing with him. Now on the other side, you have Jamahal, who's looking to get his title back, a title that he never lost but vacated because of injury. He knew he would be out of competition for a while and stepped away, let other guys compete for gold. Admirable. But please do not forget that on his best day, Jamahal beats anybody in the division. Now don't get me wrong, I know that he's standing opposite Glory Kickboxing Hall of Famer, Glory Kickboxing World Champion, multiple time UFC World Champion, one of the best strikers in the game. I know this. But Jamahal is still the best striker at the weight class. His hands are clean, his counters land heavy, and he's got so much dog in him. We saw how he was able to dig deep against Thiago Santos and get him out of there in the fourth round. We saw him survive tricky spots on the ground against Glover Teixeira. He puts a beating on him, he captures gold, he 50-44s him on the judges' scorecards. But I don't think that he has to dig all that deep this week. I don't think that Pereira is going to have to dig all deep this week because I don't see this fight going beyond 2 rounds. Jamahal could go out there and starch the champ with a hard 1-2 down the middle because for Pereira, as world-class of a striker as he is, he's not moving his head all that much, and frankly he's starting to look like he's slowing down quite a bit. You look at that fight against Yuri Procházka, he looked like he was stuck in the mud. But for Poatan, what he really had going for him in that fight were the leg kicks. He was chopping Yuri down, and those leg kicks played a huge role. They might this week, but if they don't, I think that he's going to get touched up. He's going to be at a significant speed disadvantage, and Yuri Procházka was doing his best work when he was first, when he was letting his hands go. He was landing and even hurting the champion. That could mean trouble because Jamahal has faster hands than Yuri, he hits harder than him, he has underrated fight IQ. I don't know if a lot of people talk about it, but Jamahal has a great mind for the game, and that's going to be huge this week because he's going to know that he needs to either be all the way in or all the way out to at least avoid the calf kicks. He knows that that right hand will be there for him all night long, and he knows that he can wrestle in this fight if he needs to. And for me, because I know this is going to be a concern of some people, I think enough time has passed since the Achilles injury. I don't think that he would step in there and compete if he wasn't ready to do so. So I like him quite a bit here. I think he's been the best fighter in the division since he's joined the UFC, and he's going to prove that for the next couple of years as he holds the belt. Now, of course, Pereira could chop him down with the leg kicks, land a big hook, drop Hill. Hill sometimes can have his hands a bit low, so of course it's possible, but Hill has more ways to win. He's the better grappler. His output's going to be better too. You look at the fight against Glover Teixeira. He broke and still holds the record for most significant strikes landed in a light heavyweight fight by a wide margin, a number that nobody's going to beat anytime soon. And Poatan is a legend, but when I look at his last handful of fights, you got Israel Adesanya where he finished him in the 5th round, stopped prematurely. He was losing that fight, ref steps in, very bad stoppage. You can't stop a champion in that situation in my opinion. Then him and Stylebender rematch, he gets knocked out cold. He moves up to 205, fights Jan Blachowicz in a very close fight, could have went either way. If you score it for Jan Blachowicz, I'm not mad at you. And against Yuri Procházka, again, he was doing well with the low kicks. He caught him a couple times, but Yuri was catching him, and Yuri was winning that fight before he got caught. So when you look at his last handful of fights, yes, they've been against former champions, world-class competition, but they haven't been without their controversy, whether it's stoppage, decision. He faced a lot of adversity as well. But for Jamahal, outside of the Paul Craig fight, he has been dominant. So I'll take the younger man here, the faster hands. I think he gets it done. I give him the cardio edge as well. If they start pushing a pace, I think he's going to give you more in 3, 4, and 5, but I don't think it gets that far. I like Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill to win this week by knockout. Next, we're looking at Zhang Weili defending her title against Yan Xiaonan. This is what the UFC is calling the co-main event. I call it the first track on Drake's album More Life because it's free smoke. It's going to be hard to match Zhang Weili up with a lot of strawweights and find odds that make sense because she's too damn good for the rest of the division. Tatiana Suarez maybe is the only fighter that might give her trouble at this point in her career, but she's at the top of her game, looking better each time she fights. She's smart enough to take the path of least resistance. We saw that when she fought power puncher Amanda Lemos. She took the path of least resistance, took her down every round, dominated that fight. We saw her do the same thing in her second fight against Joanna Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Instead of going to war with her, giving Joanna the type of fight that she can look good in, she pressured her, she crowded her, she took her down, she was more physical, and she ends up knocking her out. At this weight class, Zhang Weili has maxed out the physical stats. She is just bigger and stronger than everybody else, and despite being so strong, she's not sacrificing any speed. And on the other side, Xiaonan has done well in the UFC. She's coming off the best win of her career with a knockout over former champion Jessica Andrade. She's sharp at range. We will give her that. She does an excellent job of playing the numbers game, staying ahead with the volume. She outlands everybody that she fights on the numbers, and she's got good cardio. Xiaonan is fantastic. She's great. But you have to be more than great to compete with an all-timer, and that's why she falls short this week. Xiaonan's not going to be able to handle the physicality and the takedowns coming her way. Weili's going to stay heavy on top and finish her with ground and pound, probably in the second or third round. Xiaonan is the only woman in UFC history to get TKO'd by Carla Esparza. Weili Zhang is on another level, and she's going to get her out of there the same way. Give me the champion, and still, Zhang Weili wins by knockout. Next, we have just beautiful matchmaking. Easily the most entertaining matchup you can have at 155 pounds. We're lucky to see it. Songs will be sung about this fight. Justin Gaethje is fighting Max Holloway, who looks like he's put on some mass and is moving up to 155 for good. And the Blessed Express has given us some of the most iconic moments in UFC history, just to name a few. If you're an MMA fan, the last 10 seconds of the Ricardo Lamas fight is etched in your brain forever. You look at the way that he did Jose Aldo back to back, the master classes over Brian Ortega and Calvin Kattar, and how he sent TKZ off. Ridiculous. Crazy moments, crazy resume, still young enough to have a lot in the tank. He's got a lot of miles on him, but I think that Max Holloway is just made for fighting. And another guy who was clearly made for fighting stands across from him this week. The BMF, the most exciting fighter in the sport since coming into the UFC, he's even challenged for the title twice. And Justin Gaethje is coming off of the best win of his career. Perfect head kick knockout over Dustin Poirier. Gaethje's favored here, and it makes sense. His body is more acclimated to the division. He's got big power in both of his hands. He's got great low kicks, and we've seen Max Holloway not really address low kicks. Alexander Volkanovski was chopping him down with those calf kicks in each one of their fights, and the thing is, I don't think that it bothers Max Holloway all that much. That's the problem. It's not bothering him, but there's shots that land, there's shots that score. The calf can only take so much, and nobody's going to kick your calf harder at these weight classes than Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje's also super durable, as we know, so it's going to be hard for Max Holloway to get much respect on the feet without eating a bunch of counter shots in the process. And that's really where I worry for Holloway the most in this fight, because Justin Gaethje's going to chop him down. He does a great job of timing hooks off of the break when the fight does get close or does get into a clinch. So there are a lot of reasons to like Justin Gaethje this week. Where he might struggle is with the volume that Holloway can put out there. Holloway's going to put a lot out there, throw in combination. On paper, Justin Gaethje lands at 7.35 strikes per minute. That's crazy volume. But despite the crazy high output, he still has a negative striking differential. He's as hittable as they come. And to me, Max Holloway is the better boxer, so he should land way more punches. The power difference between the two is what can end up costing Holloway these rounds. So it's tough, and I'm sure you can relate to this. I'm torn between these guys. Both guys have ways to win. Max Holloway is death by 1,000 cuts. Justin Gaethje's kind of the same way, because he does have big power, but he's not starching people, at least not in the last couple of years with his hands. But it's not just about having big one-shot knockout power, it's just the physicality difference, which we saw in that second fight for Max Holloway against Dustin Poirier. So it's tough. I feel like it can go either way, of course. For me, the deciding factor is going to come down to championship experience. We got 5 rounds on tap. Justin Gaethje is a dog, but Max Holloway should be better in the 4th and 5th round. I say that because he's been there time and time again, while Justin Gaethje has seen 2 4th rounds in his UFC run, against the ghost of Tony Ferguson and against Dustin Poirier, where he took a beating, gassed out, and was finished. Max Holloway's gone the full 25 minutes in 8 of his last 9 fights, so the championship medal is there, and not for nothing. You can argue that Justin Gaethje underperformed in his 2 title shots against Khabib and against Charles Oliveira, and you might look at it and think, Kunith, he was giving Khabib some trouble. He was, but he was off balance. He was throwing everything into his strikes. He looked a bit sloppy in there. Maybe it was because he was nervous. Maybe it was because he knew the takedown was coming, but maybe the moment was really big too. You look at the fight against Charles Oliveira. He had some success against Oliveira as well, but you also saw moments where he threw a hook and ended up on all 4s. And against Khabib, he was taken down, submitted, and Khabib made it look easy. Against Charles Oliveira, he was dropped and submitted, and Charles Oliveira, as soon as he started catching him, did not stop. Max Holloway's been there, done that, and shown up when the lights are the brightest. So while I think it could go either way, I do lean Max Holloway here. I think that he boxes Justin Gaethje up. I think he pulls away in the championship rounds. I think he wins a decision and becomes the new BMF. So give me Max blessed. Give me Holloway to win this fight by decision. Next, we have a fight between Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. The champion has a name. The Do Bronx title run is as cool as any we've we've ever seen, and he's coming off of a knockout over Beneil Dariush. Both men are. So the excitement for Charles Oliveira, it's there. He still looks to be one of the most dangerous fighters in the division. You got guys like Chandler, Gaethje, Poirier talking about title shots, BMF belts, Conor McGregor fights. Do Bronx finished all of them. The only time he's lost since he's hit his stride and entered his fighting prime was against Islam Makhachev, and there's no shame in that. Islam might be top 5 all time realistically once it's all said and done. But that's where the problem is created, because Arman Tsarukyan does bring a bit of a similar skill set. He's a great wrestler, moves lightning fast from one position to the next, one of the best scramblers you're going to find in the division today, power in both hands, younger man, never been submitted. It could be Do Bronx kryptonite is what I'm saying. Arman Tsarukyan can find himself on top, land ground and pound, ride out submission. You got Charles Oliveira, who has no problem spending time on his back, which normally serves him pretty well, but against somebody who's as technically sound on the mat as Arman Tsarukyan, it could be dangerous. Now, what Charles Oliveira has going for him is that you're going to see Tsarukyan shoot a lot of takedowns, a lot of double legs, a lot of single legs, and he's going to leave his neck out there. He's playing with fire if you do that against Do Bronx. On top of that, I think it gets pretty dicey for the favorite here in Arman Tsarukyan when the fight is on the feet. His knees up the middle can deter Arman from shooting for takedowns. His hands are much sharper as well, and he's got 2 punches that are absolutely killer. The perfect left hook that he throws and that straight right. If either of those land cleanly, they're going to rock Arman Tsarukyan's world. And here's the thing. If you look at Tsarukyan's fight just 2 fights ago against Joaquin Silva, who stepped in on short notice, there was a moment there in the second round where Silva landed a left hook, rocked him. Tsarukyan's hurt, he's on skates. The follow-up from Silva, non-existent. Silva looked like he admired his work a little bit, didn't really follow up, allowed himself to be taken down, didn't threaten a submission on the way down, even on the weak shot, nothing. And that right there is one of the biggest separators between Charles Oliveira and everybody else. He does not let you off the hook. Once he hurts you, only the end of the round can save you. There's no pause, there's no falling into the clinch, there's no just sitting there. It's only knees, punches, and wrapping up your neck. That's it. If this was a 5-round fight, I feel like I would lean towards Tsarukyan a bit more, because I think he has the cardio advantage and he'd fight differently to drag this fight out into the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. But with 3 rounds in front of a crowd, blonde hair illuminated by God at your front door, at plus money, give me the former champion, give me the passion, give me the more dangerous man between the two. I will take Charles Oliveira to win inside the distance. And just the sneak peek, Charles Oliveira will be on the official betting article this week. If you want access to the official betting article on KunithMMA.com, that's going to be linked in the description and in a pinned comment. You come right to the plans page, you can grab what works best for you. If you're going with heavy lineups this week and you just want a lineup optimizer, you can grab that for $5.99. If you want everything, the lineup optimizer as well as the DFS strategy guide, projections model, data, official betting article, community forum access, you can grab total access, best value, and it'll get you prepared for UFC 300. Now, of course, those are paid. The YouTube is free, but if you want something else that's free, you can go to KunithMMA.com, put your email in, and I'm going to email you the prop of the week. The prop of the week is the prop that we like at the biggest odds. So it might not be our favorite prop, but it's the prop that we like at the biggest odds. Last week, 700 plus people got an email for Dan Argueta by submission at plus 750. We were this close. All that grappling, we were this close. We were so close to hitting it at plus 750, but we just put something small on that because of how wide the lines are, and I'm going to send one to you each week. So you can visit KunithMMA.com, put your information in, get a free prop of the week, or you can just go grab a total access package. Best way to support the channel. Back to the breakdown. Next, we're looking at a fight between Bo Nickal and Cody Brundage. The biggest favorite of the year is Bo Nickal, and he should make it look easy this week. I'll tell you this. We know how this fight's going to go. Nickal shoots for a takedown, Brundage jumps guillotine, Nickal escapes guillotine, slaps on arm triangle, first round submission, pretty simple. Bo Nickal undefeated, coming in with a 100% finish rate, the best wrestler in the division and likely the best pure wrestler in the UFC. Cody Brundage has a puncher's chance. Everybody does. You might as well put something on Cody Brundage to win inside the distance. If you don't have just something on Brundage inside the distance, you're just bad at the game. The only way he wins this fight is with a knockout or a submission, so you might as well put inside the distance at plus 1500 or whatever it's going to be. Something. $1. Who cares? Because it's MMA. But don't do too much, because most likely Bo Nickal wins this fight in the first round, cashing as a minus 2500 favorite. Don't put it in your parlays. Listen to me right now. A lot of people are crazy. A lot of people are going to see Bo Nickal and say, oh, I'm just going to put him in my parlays. For what? If you want to make a separate parlay and bump up the odds a little bit, put Cody Brundage in there if anything. But Bo Nickal at 2500 is not going to move the needle for you at all. If you want to take a prop, you can. I don't know what the prop odds look like at the time of recording this, but the pick for this fight and the outcome of this fight is going to be Bo Nickal by submission. Next, we have a more competitive fight between Procházka and Aleksandar Rakić. Interesting fight at light heavyweight because either man could be on the cusp cusp of a title shot here with a win. You've got Aleksandar Rakić coming back after 2 years off nearly. He tore his ACL in a main event against Jan Blachowicz. He took his time to heal, recover, build up his strength again, and once again is looking to compete at the highest level. Hopefully he comes back as good as he left. You should always hope that for these guys, not only for their sake, but selfishly because we want a good fight on our hands. So him at his best versus Jiří at their best should be an entertaining fight. Now you have Jiří Procházka, as we talked about before, coming off of a loss to Alex Pereira. That was his first fight after an injury, and frankly, he didn't look bad. I know that people give Jiří a lot of crap for what he looks like online, but he didn't look bad. He got caught by the better striker who has power to do that to anyone, but before he landed that strike in the pocket, Jiří Procházka was winning the fight. Of course, we know Procházka has big power, 25 knockouts on his record, 96% finish rate, tons of experience as well. He's a wild man. He does unpredictable things in there, moves like nobody else. Or rather, nobody else moves like him. Now, Rakić, prior to his injury, was not knocking people out left and right, but he was managing fights well, dictating pace, range, and not really getting hurt too much. Now, for Rakić, it's an interesting UFC run that he's had. He's got a 6-2 record in the promotion. You could look at that record and think, okay, 6-2, cool. But you do your due diligence. You go back, you watch the fights, you realize he was beating Jan Blachowicz before the ACL tear. He was going to go on to a decision win in that fight. And then you look at the loss against Volkan Oezdemir, just an awful decision. So yes, there are losses on his record, but without a freak injury and with better judging, which we never seem to get, he would be 8-0 in the UFC. Now, what's he going to look like after the injury? I don't know. So I'm not going to assume he'll look any better or worse. I'll just think that he will look the way that he looked last time he competed, minus the tearing his ACL, minus the leg injury. But if that's the case, who has looked better in their run in the UFC, Aleksandar Rakić or Jiří Procházka? To me, I think it's Aleksandar Rakić. He throws very heavy kicks, especially low, especially to the calf. Jiří Procházka is heavy on that lead leg and looked to be compromised after eating just 2 or 3 calf kicks from Poatan. At range, Rakić is cleaner. He has more tools. He has more of a traditional style. And Jiří Procházka, it's not traditional, and he tends to make a ton of mistakes in there. He does things that you're not supposed to do. Leaves his chin way out in the air, moves backward with his chin way up, throws weird looping punches, puts himself in bad positions intentionally so he can land heavy shots of his own. But there are a lot of things that you wouldn't teach somebody to do that he's gotten away with because of athleticism and power. But against somebody like Rakić, I don't think that kind of stuff works. I think you get punished for mistakes like that. I see Rakić controlling this fight the way that he does most of the time. He also has a great chin. He spars very hard, so he's used to taking a lot of big shots coming his way. So I don't think that Jiří Procházka is going to flatline him or anything. I think that he lands the cleaner shots, chops Procházka down each and every round with those calf kicks, and wins more minutes. So the pick for me in this fight is Aleksandar Rakić by decision. And real quick, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, share this with somebody you know is going to be watching it, and if you do all this, it's probably good luck. Next, we have a very intriguing matchup at featherweight between Calvin Kattar and Aljamain Sterling, who's making his debut in the weight class. After having arguably the best bantamweight run ever, Aljamain Sterling comes up to see what the 45ers are like for the foreseeable future, and I'm interested to see how he deals with bigger, stronger talent. Of course, he's going to match up well physically. He was already a big bantamweight, and he should be stronger than ever this week. And it's a fun matchup because Calvin Kattar is the perfect test. He's got great takedown defense, sharp hands, as tough as you'll find, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. He lost his last fight due to injury, lost a very close fight to Josh Emmett that could have went either way. He beats the brakes off of Giga Chikadze before that, but then in the fight before that, absorbed 445 significant strikes against Max Holloway over 5 rounds. So the guy's been to war. He's fought some of the best fighters in the division, and I think this is a perfect test, again, for Aljamain Sterling. If Sterling can get takedowns here, I see him having a ton of success. He takes the back as well as anybody in the sport today. That's where he makes his money. That's where he's won his fights. That's where he's won championships. Now, if he can't get takedowns here, I see him struggling with the length and the accuracy of Calvin Kattar, same way he did against Sean O'Malley. And on the feet, I don't think that Aljamain Sterling can hurt Calvin Kattar. Not bad enough to make him quit, not bad enough to knock him out, not in a million years. And I think it's going to be tough for Aljamain Sterling to get the fight to the ground because Calvin Kattar is not only preparing for him, but again, elite takedown defense. You see against Zabit, he was only taken down once, and Zabit couldn't keep him there. Chris Fishgold was the only other man in the UFC to take him down, popped right back up, knocked him out. The betting odds favor Sterling, which I assume is largely because of that championship status and knowing that Calvin Kattar has been up and down in the UFC. He has faced some of the best, so it happens. And we've talked about this on the channel. I don't even like talking about this anymore, but Aljamain Sterling's championship run, okay. Wins a split decision of Petr Yan where he did nothing on the feet, beat one-armed TJ Dillashaw, barely squeaked by Henry Cejudo off of a 3-year layoff, and was knocked out by Sean O'Malley, then left the division. So you'll always respect the championship status, of course, but I think that is what is at play here when you look at the betting odds, and I think the wrong guy's favored here. I think that Calvin Kattar wins this fight if he doesn't get his back taken in literally 2 out of the 3 rounds, because even if he gives up 1 round because it gets his back taken, whatever. But if he doesn't spend 2 rounds sitting there with Aljamain Sterling on his back, then I think he's perfectly fine, because on the feet, he's going to let his hands go. He's going to beat Aljo to the punch. He's going to outstrike him over 15 minutes. So give me Calvin Kattar to win this fight by decision. Man, oh man. Kayla Harrison makes her UFC debut. She fights Holly Holm this week. God, I hate this. I hate this fight so much. Not because it's a bad fight. We have big respect for Holly Holm. I think everybody who likes MMA has big respect for Holly Holm. But you got Kayla Harrison, who's been fighting at 155 pounds. Now she's set to make her debut at 135. What's she going to do? Cut off one of her legs? How's that going to happen? And you put her in there against the spoiler of all spoilers, the Rousey Slayer, the preacher's daughter, Holly Holm. And it's scary because you got Kayla Harrison, super high level judo that's translated well to MMA, but you don't know how effective it is because she's been crushing cans in the PFL. Big cans at that. Like, we've seen some of what the UFC featherweight fights have looked like in the women's divisions versus the athleticism you see in like the flyweight and strawweight division. Kayla Harrison's fighting 155ers in these women's divisions, so she's not exactly fighting the elite athletes, not the creme de la creme. And now she's going to come into this fight more sucked out than Christian Bale in The Machinist as a giant favorite. And the last time that Holly Holm was a massive underdog against the dominant judoka, she effectively changed the course of women's MMA forever. Now, can she dial up more magic at 42 years old? Maybe. You look at Holly Holm's long striking career, long MMA career, I don't think anybody outside of some juice heads have been in better shape for as long as Holly Holm. Just a consummate professional, somebody who is so physically strong, has stayed in such good shape for decades now that even though she's 42, I don't think that she's any worse than she was at 36. She's still going to be the better striker here. She always fights with a good game plan and does the things that puts her in the best position to win. Does she always win? No. But do you watch Holly Holm fight and think, what the hell are you doing? Not really. She's going to have the cardio edge here, again, in fantastic shape, and she has nothing to lose. Not for nothing, Holly Holm could fight for bantamweight gold with the way that the division has been moving lately. And you got the amount of nervous energy that is possibly coming from Kayla Harrison in this one. The adrenaline dump is going to hit like Piff in 05. And I don't want to be a slave to the betting odds. I know so many people who make picks online, look at the odds, assume Vegas is right. Even people I know personally will ask me about fights. Like, my friends will text me about fights and say, oh, fighter A, well, he'll obviously win. He's a minus 150 favorite and Vegas knows. Vegas does not know. Nobody knows when it comes to MMA. It's the most volatile game out there. Betting odds, betting lines, yes, they are implied probability, and you can use simulations, predictions tools, whatever the case may be. Yes, on some level, they are indicative of what is supposed to happen if these fighters compete 100 times. But if you break it down, at its core, odds are simply the price that books know you will pay for a given side of a matchup. And in women's MMA, they mean even less than that. So this is like the 8th fight in the breakdown, and I think it's my 5th dog based on what I'm looking at right here. But I don't really worry about how many underdogs I picked, how many favorites I pick. And I see people do that all the time. I tell you who I think is going to win because of the reasons that I think they're going to win. The reason why I think that Holly Holm is going to win is because she's super strong. I think that Kayla Harrison's coming into this one way more compromised than she's been in years. I think she'll come out hot. We see Holly Holm weather an early storm, then take over in the 2nd and 3rd round after Kayla Harrison's working so hard in that 1st round to either take her down or keep her down or get her out of there. So I see the preacher's daughter dominating the 2nd and 3rd rounds, landing the cleaner strikes, winning by decision, shocking the world once again. Now, this next fight could end up being a war at 145 pounds between Super Sodiq Yusuff and Diego Lopes. Surprising to me, Lopes is coming in as the slight favorite this week. It means he's getting a lot of love because Super Sodiq has not been an underdog in any of his UFC fights. In all 8 of his UFC fights, he's been favored each time. People have a lot of respect for the skill set, as they should. Solid everywhere, very athletic, physically strong, heart for days, as we saw against Edson Barbosa over 5 rounds. And he's got some nice wins along the way. I think Sodiq Yusuff is somebody who's going to stay ranked for years. Now, on the other side, you have Diego Lopes riding a small win streak, back-to-back 1st round finishes over Gavin Tucker and Pat Sabatini. We all know how cool it was to see him make his UFC debut on short notice against Movsar Evloev and giving Evloev everything he could handle. He fell short in that one, but it felt like a Lando Venata situation where we all kind of thought, hold up, let him cook. Let's see what this dude looks like on a full camp. We all knew that he could end up being a problem, and so far he has been for these guys. And when you look as good as he's looked, you get thrown in the fire, which is why he's matched up with Sodiq this week. And Sodiq Yusuff, tough fight for anybody anybody in the division, but I feel like Diego Lopes has the sauce right now. It feels like something more than momentum, almost like Charles Oliveira, and almost Dubronx-esque kind of confidence, just unwavering belief in yourself that you're going to win. Look at that haircut. You can't tell me it's not a confident guy. And Diego Lopes is tricky. He's comfortable wherever the fight takes place. You want to take him down? Cool. He's ready to submit you. You want to stand up? Cool. He's going to throw hard, long technique. You want to fight at a high pace? I'm about it. And I feel like all of that is going to create more moments for him than somebody like Sodiq Yusuff, who's just very steady. I think he's going to put Yusuff in some threatening positions, submission attempts. He may rock him on the feet at some point. I think it's going to be an all-action type of approach from Lopes, while you're going to get that steadiness from Sodiq Yusuff, and I don't think it's going to do well for him. I think minutes will slip away. So give me the confidence, give me the momentum, give me the guy on the win streak, give me Diego Lopes to win this fight by decision. Next, we're looking at a fight between Jalin Turner and Renato Moicano. I love me some money Moicano. I think we all do. But this is an absolute mismatch. I think that Jalin Turner is somebody you could plug into your parlays this week. Jalin Turner inside the distance feels like the best play of the slate. If you want to take the under, that's cool too, but Jalin Turner is just a storm in that opening round, and I don't think that Renato Moicano is going to be able to stand up to it. Of course, on the mat, Moicano can hold his own against anybody, and I think he could give Jalin Turner some trouble if it gets there, but Jalin Turner at 6'3" is giving guys all types of trouble on the feet. You see everybody struggling with that length, as they should. Dude's 6'3" at 155 pounds. That's absurd. You see guys at 5'9" at 155 and people being like, oh, he's a big lightweight. But at 6'3" with that kind of length and that kind of power, that kind of athleticism, that early speed that he has, I think that he catches Moicano here, who has been caught and dropped in the first round. We had Moicano last time out against Drew Dober. He went in there, did what he needed to do, exploited that grappling advantage that he had, took some shots in the process. He looked good in that fight, and I've been on record in these videos saying that Moicano has extremely underrated striking, but again, he is up against it. Jalin Turner is an absolute finisher. He's mean in there. You saw what he looked like against Bobby Green last time out. Had Bobby Green in the shadow realm, under the shadow realm, like the double shadow. He had Bobby Green seeing through solar eclipse glasses, and you can't see shit behind these. I feel like these are what the judges wear when they're watching the fights. But yeah, I think the younger man has him covered on the feet. If it gets to the mat, if it gets into a second and third round, I think Moicano can have a lot of success, but that round one win equity is just so high for Jalin Turner this week. So I'll take the length, I'll take the power, I'll take the younger man. Give me Jalin Turner to win this fight by knockout. Next, we have a fight between Jessica Andrade and Marina Rodriguez, and if you've watched this channel for a while, you already know what time it is. When somebody has a loss on their record to Marina Rodriguez, we say, it's okay. It happens to a lot of people, because it does. Xiaonan is going to fight for the title later in the night after Marina Rodriguez. She lost to Marina Rodriguez. Natalia Silva is going to fight for flyweight gold a year from now. She lost to Marina Rodriguez. And now former champion Jessica Andrade is set to join this not so exclusive club. Andrade is 32 years old, 4 years younger than Marina Rodriguez, but she's well behind her prime in my opinion. While Rodriguez is still at the top of her game. She's much taller, much longer, absorbs way fewer strikes, and throws right down the pipe. Yes, Jessica Andrade is coming off of the knockout to Mackenzie Dern, but on the feet, Mackenzie Dern's not offering all that much. So perfect matchup for her against somebody who didn't give her anything to worry about on the feet, and she hurt her right away. But before that, people were writing Jessica Andrade's obituary. Just because you're 32 years old doesn't mean that you're in your fighting prime by any stretch. She has been fighting for a very long time at a very high level, has fought everybody that there is to fight, every former champion, these all-time greats. They've seen Jessica Andrade at some point. And we saw Jessica Andrade knocked out by Xiaonan, who has no power. We saw Erin Blanchfield piecing her up in spots. We saw Weili knock her out, and I see Marina Rodriguez doing the same thing because she's very accurate. She knows when to sit down on her punches versus when to take a little bit off. And I just see her picking apart the smaller Andrade from range, and she finds the shot that turns her off. We've seen her drop people in the past. Andrade tends to move on a straight line right towards you, and against a long sniper like Rodriguez, she'll take that all day long. So give me the length, give me the boxing, give me the accuracy, give me Marina Rodriguez to win this fight by knockout. Now for the second fight of the night, it's an amazing fight between Bobby Green and Jim Miller. I know it's UFC 300, so people are probably going to show respect and show up early, but I hope this place is filled to the brim by the time these guys walk out because the OGs deserve it. They're going to lay it all on the line this week, and you have Jim Miller with the most fights, most wins in UFC history. Well, he better have the most wins in UFC history if he has the most fights. If not, that'd be embarrassing. But he's a legend of the game, and the UFC has done right by him. A lot of people say the UFC doesn't treat their veterans all that well, but they've done right by Jim Miller. You look at the way that he's been matched up for the last several years, they have not given him one fight since 2019 scene where you look at the matchmaking and go, damn, that's not good. That's a mismatch. The only time you might have felt that way is in favor of Jim Miller, because he's fighting a lot of older guys or a lot of younger guys that haven't had success or are struggling in the UFC. Meanwhile, on the other side, Bobby Green, who's not that much younger than Jim Miller, is matched up with guys like Rafael Fiziev, Hak Parast, Islam Makhachev, Drew Dober, Grant Dawson, Jalen Turner. Jeez Louise. Ain't no favors being done for King Bobby Green whatsoever. Now for this fight, I expect both these guys to box, and box quite a bit. And their reach is the same. You'll notice that Bobby Green's a bit taller, but both men coming in with a 71-inch reach, but I feel like Bobby Green fights longer. He uses that reach more effectively. His hands are faster, he moves his head a lot more than Jim Miller, and he's going to fight with that hands down style that I feel like is really going to work for him in this matchup. Of course, Jim Miller has seen it all, but those low hands create really uncommon angles, so it's going to take some adjusting, and I don't think that Jim Miller is going to be able to effectively do that this week. Miller's going to slow down as the fight goes on. We don't really see that happen from Bobby Green, so even if Jim Miller starts to understand the angle, starts to get his timing down a bit, I feel like that's not going to come until maybe late in the first, getting into that second round, and if that's the case, I feel like physically he's just not going to be able to keep up at that point. He's not going to be able to capitalize on the data that he was able to download, if you will. I think he'll be too tired to make Bobby Green pay for it. Now for Bobby, I think that he pieces him up, but I don't think that he knocks him out, because this was crazy to me. I didn't realize this until I was looking this up, but we never really talk about or hear Jim Miller's name when we talk about all-time chins, but my God, the dude has been knocked down twice in the UFC, 43 fights deep. That's fucking crazy. Now, if for whatever reason Bobby Green decides to shoot for a takedown here, he's going to get choked, no question. You don't take down Jim Miller, just not smart. But I don't think that happens. I don't think that's the type of fight that Bobby Green wants to have anyway. So I like the hand speed, the head movement, the output from Bobby Green. I think it serves them all very well this week. Now, am I worried about how badly he was knocked out last time? Oh yeah, quite a bit. But the pick for me in this fight is Bobby Green. King Bobby is going to win by decision. And lastly, we're looking at a fight between Cody Garbrandt and Deiveson Figueiredo. Deiveson Figueiredo, big favorite over Cody No Love, and I get it. Cody No Love's been knocked down 7 times in his last 8 fights, and I don't think he's necessarily back. Yes, he has won his last 2 fights, but that was a snooze fest against Trevin Jones, and Trevin Jones was 1-4 in the UFC, but he won that fight, and he beat Brian Kelleher, who's 8-8 in the UFC, but now he has to face former champion Deiveson Figueiredo, who's got tons of power, can grapple as well as anybody, and is fighting at his full physical potential at bantamweight. But he was destroying people early in his UFC career. The finish rate started to go down as he got a bit older, but that's going to happen when you fight Brandon Moreno 4 times. He looked good in his bantamweight debut late last year, where he beat Rob Font every round, showed off that wrestling, showed off the power in his hands, looked like he had no issues against one of the better fighters in the division, a ranked guy in the division. We've seen Garbrandt chinned several times. We haven't really seen the same from Figueiredo. I think that Deiveson Figueiredo wins a bunch of fights at bantamweight. I think it's nearly impossible for him to have a path to the title with how bottlenecked and messy bantamweight is. You got Sean O'Malley calling out Ilia Topuria. You've got Merab waiting for a fight for the belt. You've got Chito Vera just floating around now after losing to some of the top guys. Corey Sandhagen might be the best fighter in the division that doesn't get to fight for the belt. Umar Nurmagomedov's knocking on the door any day now. Deiveson Figueiredo's 36 years old, so by the time the dust settles, by the time he even gets a chance to start thinking about getting the belt, he's gonna be 39 years old. So I see him winning fights at bantamweight, but I don't see him competing for the belt anytime soon. But he's gonna beat Cody Garbrandt, I'll tell you that. And this might come as a surprise to you, but I don't think that he knocks him out. I think it's going to be a decision here. I think that the consensus is that he's going to go out there and spark Cody Garbrandt, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's just going to outwork him, land bigger shots, take him down, walk him down, but he's going to win this fight on the judges' scorecards. Give me Deiveson Figueiredo by decision. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I will see you later in the week for final picks. Let's go.